Good morning, good morning. Hey, it's good to see ya. Thanks. Wow, it's so good to be back with you guys, and we are in this series on the parables, and the parables are such great stories, aren't they? They're memorable, they're relevant, they really make the truth stick, but they're more than great stories, because Jesus is more than a great storyteller. He's king, and if we'll have ears to listen, hearts that are open, he'll reveal to us through these stories what the kingdom of heaven is all about. And of course, we've said that that's not primarily about heaven, it's about how we live here and now. And it's not a physical kingdom, it's about a way of life, a lifestyle where Jesus is your king. And so that's why Jesus is giving us these parables. Just as a review, he's using parables to describe what life is like when Jesus is in charge. Now, I've said this so many times that by now you can probably say it too. This is what life is like when Jesus is in charge. And if we're not careful, we'll just skip right over that and just keep going. But there's a question that is begged by this statement. If this is what life is like when Jesus is in charge, then you and I and all of us need to ask ourselves, is Jesus really in charge? Is he really? See, it's not just enough to say he's king, we're actually living like it. And that's what the parable we're gonna look at today is really all about. It's about challenging us if Jesus is really in charge. Now, the parable we're gonna look at today comes at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is Jesus' most famous collection of teachings. It's 3 chapters long in our Bibles. It's a lot of words. It's very famous words. Words that even pagans quote, like, judge not, lest ye be judged. And people who don't go to church, they always quote it in the King James, which is awesome. And so you know these are very famous words that a lot of people agree with. But Jesus is gonna teach us a parable that says, you agreeing with me is not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for your agreement. I'm not looking for your admiration. I want to know if you're willing to align your life with the words I'm saying or not. So the lead in to the parable he's going to give us is Matthew 7, 21 through 23. Here's what he says. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Do you see what Jesus is saying here? This is at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said all of these powerful words, and then he's saying, don't be so quick to act like you agree with them. Don't be so quick to just applaud me and say, oh, Lord. Those are beautiful teachings. I just love them. You know what? I think I'll make a refrigerator magnet out of them. I'll stick them on my fridge. You know, I'll have a coffee mug with your words on it, and it'll make me feel so warm and cozy when I sip from it. Jesus is like, okay, that's not the same as me actually being your Lord, your king. Do you know what Lord means? Lord means leader. Do you understand that so often, even well-meaning Christians act like the way a relationship with Jesus works is that Jesus is supposed to follow us around. Like, we're not supposed to follow him around. He's supposed to follow us around. And then when we need him, we call him in from the bullpen like a relief pitcher. We're like, okay, Jesus, I got 2 strikes on me right here. I need you to step up, and I need you to kind of get me out of this mess. And I think I just turned our relief pitcher into a pinch hitter. But you get the idea, is that sometimes we just need Jesus to come through for us. And Jesus is like, that's not how this works. I don't follow you around and you tell me what to do. You're supposed to follow me around and I tell you what to do. Again, Jesus isn't looking for our admiration or even our agreement. He's wanting to know if we're really committed to aligning our lives with the words that he's saying. So to drive this point home, he ends the Sermon on the Mount with this grand finale, this big finish, which is a parable that if you've logged any time in church, you've probably heard it before, and here it is. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Now, How many of you have heard the wise and foolish builder parable before? Raise your hand. Just a quick survey here. Okay, how many of you don't participate when I ask you to raise your hand? Go ahead and raise your hand for that. There, you did, finally. Good job. Okay, so a lot of you have heard it. If this is your first time and you're hearing it for the first time, you're in for a real treat because you're going to get it here today with us. But for a lot of you, you've heard it all before, and you probably feel like you could probably preach the sermon. You're like, build your house on the rock. Yay, let's go. Like, do we even need to sit through the next 27 minutes of this? And you're like, 20? He's still got 27 minutes. And the person back there is like, he actually has 24 minutes and 41, 39, 38 seconds. Okay, so I don't really pay attention to that. But, as you guys are like, we know. Here's the deal. I learned this in junior church when I was a little kid. And I learned it through a song with motions. How many of you know the song? Well, you're all about to know the song because we're going to do it. Ready? Here we go. The wise man built his house upon the... Oh, no. We're all doing it, so get your little builders out. Here we go. The wise man built his house upon the rock. You're supposed to sing, too. You don't even have to sing on tune. We had the really good singers out here before. Now it's just me and you, and it's going to be raw, okay, and gritty. Here we go. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. And the rains came a-tumbling down, and the rains came down, and the floods came up. The rains came down, and the floods came up. The rains came down, and the floods came up, and the house on the rock stood firm. Very good, and not really on note, but that was okay. That's all right. It was close. You were getting there. All right. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rains came a-tumbling down, and the rains came down, and the floods came up, and the rains came down, and the floods came up, and the rains came down, and the floods came up, and the house on the sand went splat. Yeah, splat. Yeah, so that's how that goes. So now that's a very vivid way to learn this parable. I still remember it, obviously, from junior church, and I also remember what my youth minister said after he taught us that song. He said, kids, the storms are going to come. You know, the storms are always going to be there. But what Jesus is teaching us is how to splat-proof our life. And that always stuck with me. This is how to splat-proof your life. And that's the way that Jesus is telling us this story. He's not saying you're going to be able to avoid the storms that are going to come. The storms come. Notice, both builders built in kind of the same place with the same climate. They probably even had the same open floor plan, you know, to make their house really pop and be awesome. But the difference wasn't what you could see on the surface. The difference, how you splat-proof your life, has to do with what's going on down deep, down how you actually establish the foundation of the house. Now, when Jesus tells this story in Luke, he gives us a little detail about that it wasn't really just about, what foundation that they built it on, but it was how they built. Notice what he says in verse 48. They are like a man building a house who dug down deep. Everybody say, dug down deep. Dug down deep and laid the foundation on the rock. That's the key. You've got one who builds it on sand and doesn't have to do a lot of hard work because it's just sitting right there on the sand. And the fact is, when the sun is shining, that beach house looks pretty good. He's already sitting on his front porch, sipping his lemonade, posting on Instagram that he's living a #blessed life. And it's wonderful, right? Whereas the guy building on the rock is digging down deep. Now, how do you dig back in the time that Jesus was teaching this parable? You didn't have any kind of backhoe or any kind of jackhammer or any kind of power tool that you could use or big equipment to move dirt. How did you do it? With some kind of crude shovel and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So imagine this guy is digging down deep. He's ankle deep and then knee deep and then up to his chest in this trench, and he's looking out over what he's dug, and he's looking at that guy in that house, and he's like, who's the wise guy here? And who's the foolish guy here? I look silly because he seems to be doing fine. He looks so smart and sophisticated, sitting on his front porch of his beach house, living the dream, and I still am digging the foundation. That looks smart, and this looks foolish. How ironic. But there's a life principle here that Jesus is reinforcing that all of us, especially in our culture, need to zero in on. Visible signs of success do not always equal wise building. Like when the sun is shining, it's blue skies and the weather report is great, the person with the beach house seems to be doing well. In fact, they seem to be miles ahead of the person who's still digging down deep. So which person is actually living their best life now? It's very hard to tell on the surface. But then the rains come down and the floods come up. And that's where the quality of the building project and the wisdom of the builder truly gets revealed. Because the fact of the matter is, what my youth minister said years ago, both types of houses face storms. You cannot avoid the storm. You can only splat-proof your life. Jesus did not promise that if you make him Lord, that you're gonna have rainbows and unicorns and Skittles all day long for your life. He makes it very clear here. Whether you choose him as Lord or you don't choose him as Lord, you're gonna face storms. The storms will come. And then the storms will reveal who really built wisely or not. It's when the rains come down and the floods came up that we figure out whether the digging down deep has really happened. Now, we know that Jesus is talking about more than just a house, right? This is not like a special on HGTV that Jesus is putting out about how to renovate, this old house or anything. This is about your life. So what do we mean by the foundation? What is the equivalent of digging down deep when it relates to our lives? We're talking about what's going on at the core of our being. What's really happening below the surface down into the depths of our heart. See, the storms come along and they show us what we're really made of. Are we saying, Lord, Lord, because we agree with him or we admire him? Or are we saying, Lord, Lord, because we're aligning our lives with him at the deepest level of our lives? What's the difference between the wise builder and the foolish builder? The surfacey quick answer when you read this is, well, one built on the rock, which is Jesus, and the other built on sand. But if you say it quickly like that, you will actually potentially miss the point of the parable. And here's what I mean by that. If we're too quick to answer, we will think that simply by being here today, we're immediately in the wise builder category. We're here, and that's a big deal. You came to church. That is a wise choice. You're here on Sunday, and there's a bunch of people who aren't here. So it's easy to look at this passage and say, we must be the wise builders in here, and those out there who didn't come to church, they must be foolish. They're out there living in their beach mansions while we're in here digging down deep so that we can build our house on the rock. But do you know that Jesus, through this parable, is only talking to the people in here? This parable does not apply to anyone who's not here today. You know why? Because they can't hear his words today. Now, there's other things to say about that, but this particular passage is only for those of us who are in here today. So you simply showing up on Sunday doesn't guarantee that you're a wise builder. Because it's about more than just what you do on Sunday. It's about what you do with what you did on Sunday, on Monday through Saturday. Look at what Jesus says here. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. What did he do? He heard the words, and then what did he do? Put them into practice. Notice verse 26. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. You're here to hear the words. What you do next will determine whether you're a wise builder or a foolish builder. Hearing is not enough. It's whether you put it into practice or not that makes the difference. So I'm a parent, you know that. My kids are here, 3 of them. The 3 youngest are here. I'm gonna pick on them a little bit. They always know I do this, and so they're good with it, right, guys? Sure, they're good with it, and because they gotta have a ride home, so they're good with it. So from time to time, most of the time, they're really great kids. They really are. And we'll edit that part out of the message later when they try to use it against me. But they're really great kids. But from time to time, they don't get it right. Sometimes they don't get it right. That's why they need parents, right? We intervene. We step in. We say, oh, no, we're not going to talk like that. Oh, no, we're not going to do it like that. Oh, here, we need to course correct and do this. Now, here's the thing about my kids. Maybe your kids are the same way. My kids, when I intervene, when I try to coach them, it's amazing how smart they get right off the bat. They're super smart. They're the most knowledgeable kids on the planet. When I step in and say, no, we're not going to do that, you know what they say first thing every time? I know. 14, 13, 11, they know everything. I know. And what I say, sometimes to them, a lot of times in my head, is knowing and doing are two different things. You know better, but you don't always do better. That's why I'm getting involved. I need you to do better, not just know. My kids are also very quick when I intervene, when I start coaching them up as a parent, they will say, sorry. But they say sorry, but what they mean is, shut up and quit talking to me and go away. That's what they mean. Right, guys? That's what you mean. Okay. So they know, and they're going to say it. So I say, don't be sorry. So you didn't hear them, but they did. They said it. So, yes, thank you. So in case you didn't hear it, I say, don't be sorry, just do better. And they know that's exactly right. I don't need their sorry, especially because it's really just code for like, stop talking to me and leave me alone. The sincerity of their sorry will show up in the consistency of their obedience. Now, that is parenting gold that I just handed you, so you might want to write that down if you're a parent. But it's actually discipleship gold. The sincerity of your sorry will show up in the consistency of your obedience. You know, that's an important little phrase to keep in mind when you're sitting taking communion and saying sorry again. And I can picture Jesus saying, hey, don't be sorry, just do better. Like, I think you said sorry about this enough. I want to see, am I really Lord? See, when we just quickly say sorry or I know or I've heard it all before, we've heard a bunch of verses, haven't we? Have you heard the one about how we need to forgive others the way we want God to forgive us? Have you heard that one? That's a great one, isn't it? We need to forgive as we want to be forgiven. But what about when somebody hurts us and we actually have to forgive? I know, sorry. What about loving your enemies? Loving your enemies, people who don't like you and are plotting against you. You got to love them. That's a wonderful refrigerator magnet, isn't it? Just put it up there. Pff, love your enemies. But what about when they leave an empty milk carton in there for you to throw away? What about those enemies, huh? What are you going to do about it then? I know. Love my enemy. I know. Sorry. The sincerity of your sorry is going to show up in the consistency of your obedience. What about we're supposed to put God first and not value things more than we value him? We're not supposed to value things more than we value the people who are made in his image. You heard that one? See, it's when we don't want to do it. It's when it's hard. It's when it goes against our nature, what's easy, what's convenient, when it goes against the spiritual equivalent of us sitting on the porch of our beach house drinking our lemonade, when we have to actually get the shovel out and get in the dirt and we sweat and we bleed and we wonder if it's doing us any good and why am I doing this when no one else is doing this? Is this really gonna matter? But when the storms come, and they will come, when the rains come down and the floods come up, what you're doing with Jesus' words, whether you're working them into your life or not, will be revealed. And that's what's gonna matter. And that is what will expose or reveal whether you've been a wise builder with his words or a foolish builder with his words. Now, when I need to understand Scripture in a more relevant and deeper way, I sometimes will read a passage in the NIV or in the New Living Translation, and I'll be like, I think I know what that means, but like, what's that mean? And then to help me, what I'll do is I'll go to the Message version. Have you guys heard of this version of the Bible? It's like a paraphrase, the Message version. Well, here's what the Message version of the Wise and Foolish Builder says, and it's super helpful. Okay, verse 24, the Wise Builder verse. Look at this. If you work these words into your life, you're like a smart carpenter who built his house on solid rock. If you work them into your life, that's a big if. Work them into your life. I like that phrase. Like, that looks like you got a shovel and you're digging down deep. Look at verse 26. It's even better. The foolish builder verse. But if you just use my words in Bible studies and don't work them into your life, you're like a stupid carpenter who built his house on the sandy beach. Yeah, that stings a little bit, doesn't it? Because like foolish builder, you're like, well, I'm still a builder. You know, like foolish, I'm foolish. I have my moments. But nobody wants to be like stupid carpenter. You're like, and it's hard to even picture Jesus saying that, but I think he did. I think that's what the Aramaic or Hebrew or whatever is. I think he's like, stupid. That's so stupid. But look who he says is stupid. You attended a Bible study. You bought the devotional book. You showed up every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. You filled out your workbook. But you didn't work it into your life. And you wanted credit for showing up. You wanted credit for sitting on your front porch sipping lemonade with a devotional book open on your lap. And Jesus is like, I'm over here in the trench. Here's your shovel. Yes, I'm glad you went to the Bible study. Now let's work it into your life. You know what this means, right? That this following Jesus thing isn't as easy as we'd like to think it is. That working his words into our lives takes work. It's hard. It goes against our nature. It goes against the flow of our culture. It goes against everything we tend to value in America. Ease, comfort, security, control. It's not automatic. And no one else can do this work for you. Kids, I'm so glad that your parents are raising you in a Christian home. They are building a good, solid foundation for themselves. You realize that that's their foundation. They are working the truth into their life and showing you the truth so you can work it into yours. And if you don't work it into your life, if you don't make it real for you, if it doesn't become the core of who you are, there is a storm coming, and that storm is going to splat you. And you will want to blame it on the church you grew up in or the family that you grew up in, when the reality is, and I hope this doesn't sting too much, you were a stupid carpenter who did not work it into your life. Some of you are here with a spouse who cares about this deeply. And you care about them, so you're here. They are building a foundation for their life. What are you doing with these words that you are hearing? Jesus says, riding shotgun on the faith of someone else is you being a stupid carpenter. And it's time for you to stop letting them do all the work and for you to actually work the truth into your life so that you become this person for real. No one else can do this work for you. That is why Jesus chose to end the Sermon on the Mount this way, because he looked over the crowd and he saw everyone going, yeah, this rabbi is amazing. Great teaching. And he's like, whoa. I am not saying all this stuff to make you a smarter sinner. I am saying all this stuff so that you'll work the truth into your life and it will change you. it will actually transform your character and you will become a much better version of yourself. And that's gonna take work. And it's work that only you can do. But it requires work that only God can do. And that's where it gets really interesting. And I got to borrow from another passage to make this all make sense. But look at what it says in Philippians chapter 2. Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. Now leave this up there for just a second. I want you guys to examine this verse, and I want you to answer this question. Who does the work? Do you do the work, or does God do the work? Who does the work? You or God? And your answer should be yes. Right? Because according to this verse, you work out what he works in. It requires both. In fact, we can move on to that slide. You work out what God works in. Now, let me tell you some good news. God's always going to do the work in. And you can't actually stop him from doing that. He's doing it. But it's up to you about whether that works out in your life. Some of you are mad at God. And you should that's misplaced anger. You're mad at him. You didn't come through for me when I prayed this. He's like, wait, really? That's the big thing between me and you? You have a problem with my work ethic? I'm the problem here. Like, I'm the lazy one? I'm the reckless one? I'm the one that can't be counted on? Me? And it's time for you just to come to terms with reality. You know, maybe God let you down because you have a very skewed view of what life is supposed to be about you. How dare he let a storm hit my little sandy beach house? He's like, I told you about this. I said, when the sun is shining, you better get your shovel out and you better dig down deep, because when that storm hits, you're gonna wanna be on a solid foundation. What you found out is that you didn't do the work out. You should be mad at you. I'm gonna work in. I'm always gonna work in. But you have to work it out. You are not saved by your good works, but you are most definitely saved for good works. You can't make grace happen in your life, but what happens with that grace in your life, it's almost entirely up to you. And so many of us have just been lazy, silly, stupid carpenters with the most important thing when it comes to a building project, which is the foundation. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the surface. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of your life. What matters is what's real in the core of who you are. And that's up to you. Are you willing to do the work of taking every thought captive to make it obey Christ? That work is up to you. He did the work of giving us the truth. He did the work of giving us the Spirit so we have a fighting chance. Are you willing to be responsible for your thoughts and whether they line up with the truth or not? Are you willing to take responsibility for the character defects and the shortcomings that you walk around with every single day and to actually repent of them and surrender your will to God so that he can transform you from the inside out and fill you with love and joy and peace and patience? If you're not seeing enough love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control in this world, the world's not the problem. It's what are you bringing with you? What do you have to offer? What's the work that you're working out? Because he's most definitely working in. See, it's not enough just to say, not my will, but yours be done. That's how we have to live. Like right now, I don't want to forgive. Not my will, but yours be done. I'll forgive. I don't mean it, but I'll forgive. That's obedience. And then you're back over here. I don't want to forgive. But I thought you forgave him yesterday. I know, but I'm mad again. Okay, I forgive. See, that looks like shovel in the dirt kind of faith. Whatever it is that you're avoiding obeying, that's where the work is. Whatever you've been putting off, whatever you've been sidestepping, whatever you've been justifying and excusing, God's looking at you and going, don't be that stupid carpenter. Pick up your shovel and make the most of the work I've done in you. And now let's work it out. Let's dig down deep. Let's make it real so that when the rains come down and the floods come up, your house will stand firm. So the whole point is this. When it comes to my life, which builder am I really? Not what I'm quick to say, but what am I actually doing with it? Now, whenever you build anything of consequence, you need to have someone inspect it. There's a whole process, right? Inspectors come and they determine whether the work was quality or not. Who better to inspect or survey the condition of our hearts than the one who knows them best and who loves them best? So David gives us a great prayer, and it's kind of what I want to end with here. I'm going to invite you to pray this prayer in real ways about the actual words of Jesus that you are not working into your life. To have him reveal this to you and to help you commit to actually digging down deep and living it out and putting it into practice, even when you don't want to, even when it's hard, even when it would be more convenient to ignore it or justify it or step around it. So I want you to pray this prayer with me, not out loud, but in sincerity from your heart. I want you to pray it with your eyes open. Search me, oh God. Know my heart. Like, help me know my heart. Show me what's really going on. Test me. Know my anxious thoughts, the ones where I'm relying on myself too much and not trusting in you, where I'm trying to take control, where I'm trying to do it all on my own. Help me to surrender. Help me to submit. See if there's any offensive way in me. Where am I being stubborn? Where am I being proud? Where am I being resistant? Where am I too quick to say, I know, sorry, and change me? And help me to be sincere, to be consistently obedient, and lead me in the way everlasting. Your life can be so much more than it is right now if you'll really let him be Lord. There can be so much change in you, so much transformation in your relationships. You can have a life that is solid on the rock and no storm can knock it off its foundation. If you're willing to work out what he's been working in. Let's pray. God, thank you for the challenge of this parable, for the wisdom of these words. And may we not just blow past it and assume that because we showed up today that we're wise, but that we'll take a second to really evaluate what we're doing with the words we hear, that we'll no longer settle for simply knowing a bunch of verses, but that we'll work those truths into our lives so that they become our character, they become the habits, the priorities, the values we live by, so that whenever we look down deep, we see a real and true foundation of faith that is ours and that is real and that you are helping us work on every single day. So Lord, make us wise builders who put into practice the words that we've heard you say. In Jesus' name, amen.